Water for Seeds presents A Parent's Guide to Improve Writing and Penmanship. Learn why writing is important in the evolution of humanity with founder and president Mia Durr. Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Mia Durr, and I just wanted to go over the agenda for today. So today we'll be talking about the importance of writing and some samples, 4 types of sentences by function, 4 types of sentences by structure, punctuation, capitalization, penmanship, and the lost art of cursive. Before we proceed, I'd like to go over our mission here at Water for Seeds. Water for Seeds intends to address literacy from the root, planting new seeds of hope and inspiration. Our mission is to improve both literacy and the overall quality of life of children in the United States. Without further ado, let's proceed. Why is writing important? Writing is a way for us to communicate thoughts, feelings, emotions, and our unique creative expression. As times change, so do our methods of communication. With the advent of the internet, many of us write to each other via social media, text messaging, and other forms of electronic messaging. The old and the new. As technology advances, some things remain constant throughout history. Think of how the earliest humans carved pictographs or writings on bronze, stone, paper, and wood. Those writings helped us better understand ourselves and the world around us. The more we share in writing, the more we evolve as humans. So I'll be showing some examples, but if you think about how the different writings that we've discovered over the past few centuries, those writings helped us to understand the culture, the dynamic of the people, how they managed their societies, how they managed small groups, how they fed themselves, how they clothed themselves. In addition to the tools that were found, the writings also gave us a lot of insight into their day-to-day lives. Here we have some examples of some of the oldest human writings. So we have some writing from ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerian people. This type of text is called cuneiform. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. We have some ancient text writings from ancient Japan, which is the Kojiki writing. Of course, many of us know about ancient Egypt, which is the hieroglyphic writing. And then down below, we have some cursive handwriting. So as you can see, writing is history in the making. Each time a person writes, they make history. Think of the many letters that we've discovered throughout the world and how those letters gave us insight into the people and places of that time. The things that we write about contributes to the story of the human condition. Each one of us has something to contribute to the improvement of humanity. The experiences we write about today will help the next generation understand what life is like for us. On the right here, I have a sample letter from one of the servicemen in World War I. He was writing a letter back to one of his family members, and he was just giving insight on what it was like. And this particular letter was "Injury fractured my skull." So he had a fractured skull, and he was just sharing his story with one of his family members. But I'm going to insert a clip and show you one of the other letters that I found on the National Archives. So here is a collection of writings that I found on the National Archives website. So the website is nationalarchives.gov.uk. I will add a link in the description box if you are a curious soul like me and you just wondered what was life like for the men and the servicemen in World War I. I believe they also have World War II on here as well. But you'll get a lot of information and insight on their day-to-day life, the different injuries that they incurred, what types of food they ate, who they were in love with, their friends. It was really interesting. So when you get a chance, definitely check out the collection of writings just to get more understanding on what life was like for them. I will add a link in the description so you can visit the website for yourself. Now that we've established that your child is a history maker, let's help them write in ways that the future generations will understand. Let's talk sentences. What is a sentence? According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a word, clause, or phrase, or a group of clauses or phrases forming a syntactic unit. So a syntactic unit really just refers to the grammatical arrangement of words, how words come together to make sense. So let's explore the different types of sentences based on function and structure. Here we're going to begin with the 4 types of sentences based on function, which are imperative, declarative, exclamatory, and interrogative. So before we speak, we want to make sure that we are clear on what we want to say and how we want to convey that message to our readers or our audience. Let's begin with imperative sentences. An imperative sentence is used when you want to make a command or request. You can use an imperative sentence when you want to request, invite, warn, command, or instruct. All of these fall under the umbrella of imperative sentences. So here I gave some examples. So for request, an example would be, please work quietly in the library. An example of an invite or invitation would be something like, join us for tonight's book club meeting. If you wanted to warn someone, an example would be, you will burn your hand if you touch the hot stove. If you wanted to give a command of someone, an example would be, do not tap on the glass. If you wanted to instruct someone, an example would be, combine water, lemons, and sugar to make lemonade. So all of these fall under the umbrella of imperative sentences. Now let's move on to the next section. Next, we have declarative sentences. A declarative sentence makes a statement. Use a declarative sentence when you want to make a statement, provide effect, explain something, or convey information. So here again, we have some examples. So an example of making a statement would be something like, today is the first day of my vegan diet. If you wanted to provide effect, an example would be, foxes and wolves are part of the Canidae family. If you wanted to explain something, an example would be, traffic signs are meant to guide us to our destination. If you wanted to convey information, an example would be, the mall opens at 12 o'clock today. So all of these fall under the umbrella of declarative sentences. Let's move on to the next. Next, we have exclamatory sentences. An exclamatory sentence expresses a strong emotion. Use an exclamatory sentence when you want to express a strong emotion like joy, anger, or surprise. Speak with conviction or warn with urgency. Here are some examples. For an emotion like joy, an example would be, I love seeing butterflies at the park. For an emotion like anger, an example would be, I don't like sitting in traffic. For an emotion like surprise, an example would be, I saw a bluebird for the first time today. If you wanted to speak with conviction, an example would be, we have the power to change the future. If you wanted to warn with urgency, an example would be, don't touch the fire. As you can see, all the exclamatory sentences end with an exclamation point. These types of sentences can come off as yelling, so use wisely. Now let's move on to the next type of sentence. And number 4 of the 4 types of sentences based on function are interrogative sentences. An interrogative sentence asks a question. Use an interrogative sentence when you want to ask a question in an effort to gain clarity, understanding, or provide assistance. Here are some examples of interrogative sentences. Things such as, who is your favorite superhero? What is the temperature today? When will we be going to the beach? Where do alligators live? Why do ducks fly south in the winter? How can I help you today? So interrogative sentences are great for helping us understand the people, places, and things around us. Moving on to the 4 types of sentences based on structure. The 4 types of sentences based on structure are simple, compound, complex, and compound-complex. Now let's explore what those types of sentences look like. Let's begin with the first type of sentence based on structure, which are simple sentences. A simple sentence contains a subject and a predicate. The subject is the person, place, or thing that you want to talk about. The predicate is what you want to say about the person, place, or thing. So what you want to say about the subject. So here are some examples of the subject and predicate in simple sentences. For number 1, Hannah likes to paint flowers. The subject would be Hannah. What we want to say about Hannah is that she likes to paint flowers. The next one is, the dogs bark every morning. The subject here are the dogs, and the predicate would be that they bark every morning. And lastly, we have Brian played on the slide. Brian here would be the subject, and the predicate would be played on the slide. What did he do? He played on the slide. So you always want to help your children to make sentences that make sense and are helpful for the readers or audience to understand. Next, we have compound sentences. A compound sentence contains 2 or more independent clauses joined together by a comma, semicolon, or conjunction word. An independent clause is a simple sentence that conveys a complete thought, and it usually contains a subject and a predicate. So just as we gave you the first example, or rather, since I gave you the first example of a simple sentence, we're going to use that simple sentence from the previous slide where we said Brian played on the slide. Now that is a complete thought. It is a simple sentence. We have a subject and we have a predicate. So if we wanted to expand that sentence to a compound sentence, we would make it Brian played on the slide and Caleb played on the swing. So now we have two independent clauses, which is Brian played on the slide. The second independent clause is Caleb played on the swing. The conjunction word to combine them we used here is the word and. So you can work on compound sentences at home, and we do use them pretty much in our day-to-day speech. We just want to make sure that when we're writing compound sentences, we have that conjunction word or that comma or that semicolon to make a complete thought. For our next type of sentence based on structure, we have complex sentences. A complex sentence contains one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. Note, a dependent clause is an incomplete sentence that relies on a complete sentence to convey a thought. And earlier, we've defined a complete sentence as a simple sentence. So that's going to be a sentence with a subject and a predicate. So starting from the top, we're going to build up just so you can see how sentence structure changes based on the type of sentence that you are writing or that your child is writing. Okay, so for simple sentence, we have Brian played on the slide. For compound sentence, we have Brian played on the slide and Caleb played on the swing. For complex sentence, we have Brian and Caleb did not play together because they like different things. So here our independent clause will be Brian and Caleb did not play together, and our dependent clause will be they like different things. Now here the word because operates as a subordinating conjunction because I found out in my research that because is actually not a conjunction word, but I'll get more into that in a separate video where I'll break down conjunctions and their uses and how they're used properly in sentences. But for brevity purposes, I just wanted to indicate that it is not a conjunction word. Wait, let me speak in a complete sentence. The word because is not a conjunction word, technically. Now let's move on to the fourth and final type of sentence based on structure, and that is compound complex sentences. And the last of the four types of sentences based on structure are compound complex sentences. A compound complex sentence contains two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. Compound complex sentences are used to give full details and discuss multiple subjects and relevant topics. So here we're going to use our simple sentence and we're going to expand it into a compound complex sentence. So we're going to go through the different steps so that you can see the progression in writing and how each thought gives more details. So for a simple sentence, we're going to use again, Brian played on the slide. For the compound sentence, we're going to use Brian played on the slide and Caleb played on the swing. For our complex sentence, we're using Brian and Caleb did not play together because they like different things. For a compound complex sentence, we would say something like Brian played on the slide, comma, Caleb played on the swings, and I played on the monkey bars while mom watches from the bench. So now we have three independent clauses. So we have Brian played on the slide, Caleb played on the swings, I played on the monkey bars. And our dependent clause here would be while mom watches from the bench. So now we're painting a picture for the reader or the audience so they can understand the scene, the scenario, the subjects. We're giving our subject and our predicate. We're giving more details. So it all depends on what type of story you want to write. So when you're explaining story writing to your children, you want to help them to understand the types of sentences. What are you trying to convey to your audience, to your reader? So you want to be clear and concise, or do you want to give a bunch of details so you can paint a vibrant picture? It's all up to you. I think it's just important for us as writers and our children to understand how to write clearly and effectively. Let's pause here and talk about one-word sentences. What is a one-word sentence? Just as a group of words can convey a complete thought, sometimes one word can also convey a complete thought. Here are two examples when one-word sentences are appropriate. Number one, when answering a question directly with yes or no. Number two, when making a command that is time-sensitive or necessary to save a life. Let's say if there's someone at a restaurant and they say, "Are you allergic to wheat?" And you respond, "No." Your response, "No," is a complete thought. There's no further explanation, and you wouldn't have to further explain because the person just simply asked you a yes or no question rather. In the second scenario, where it's time sensitive, if you see someone, let's say they're approaching the edge of a sidewalk, but there's a car fastly approaching, you may simply yell, "Stop!" Stop in itself is a complete thought. You wouldn't really stop and say, "Hey, I see a car coming, stop." You would just simply say stop. So it always depends on the scenario. I'll add a link of appropriate times and appropriate usages for one-word sentences. It's commonly used in creative writing, especially when there's a scene with two people talking back and forth. I just wanted to share that under the umbrella of sentences before we proceed. Next, we want to talk about punctuation. Let's talk about punctuation and its importance. Now that we have discussed the types of sentences based on function and types of sentences based on structure, we want to make sure that we are using the appropriate punctuation for our sentences. So punctuation is important in helping the reader understand the writer's thoughts and feelings. When we see a punctuation mark, we can understand the meaning behind the writer's words. Here we have a list of various punctuation marks. So these are the most common punctuation marks. Help your child familiarize themselves with the various punctuation marks and their usage. This will help them to write clear and complete sentences. When their sentences are clear, their thoughts are easily conveyed to their readers or audience. Next time you read a book, take your time to notice all of the punctuation marks. Think about how the punctuation marks helped you to understand the writer and the information they shared. So here we have the period, the question mark, the comma, exclamation mark, quotation marks, colon, semicolon, apostrophe, hyphen, slash, ellipsis, and parentheses. Now I will create a separate video for punctuation marks and their usages because it got a little complex, and for brevity purposes, I didn't want to add the full uses of each for each punctuation mark rather. For instance, for slash, we have a slash is used to separate letters, numbers, or words. But slash can also be used to symbolize and or. So if you were to write dogs and or, you would use the slash symbol, dogs and or Canada. Like you're trying to explain something, but you want to explain it further by adding and or. But to simplify it, you'll just add a slash. So it depends on how you want to share the information to your readers. But again, I will make a separate video for them expanding on the punctuation mark usage. Moving on to capitalization. In American English, we teach our children to emphasize and distinguish words by capitalizing them. When writing sentences, it's important to teach children when to capitalize letters. Here in the United States, we use a phrase called capitalize with mint. Here, MINT is an acronym, and each letter of the acronym is supposed to help you memorize when to capitalize. So the acronym is MINTS. So M is for months, days, holidays. I is for the pronoun I. N is for names of people, places, and companies. T is for titles of books, movies, and TV shows. And S is for start of sentences. So you can use this phrase, capitalize with mints, with your children to help them remember appropriate capitalization when they are structuring and writing out their sentences. Moving on to penmanship. Penmanship is the quality of your physical handwriting ability. It expresses your unique style. Your handwriting is as unique as your fingerprint. Something that's really cool that I found in my research is that no two people write exactly alike, not even identical twins. Each of us has a handwriting that is unique to our individual expression, our thoughts, our emotions, and all of that shows up in our handwriting. So there's no way that a person could duplicate your handwriting exactly. They sure can try, but they will never be able to exactly copy your handwriting. So why is penmanship important? Although we live in a digital era, it's important to maintain our handwriting systems for a multitude of reasons, including survival purposes. You may need to write a letter of importance in the event that our digital devices are down, to recognize and understand the writing of others, and to document our history for the next generation. So there may be times where our phones are dead or we don't have access to a computer. We still want to maintain our ability to write because it will help us to communicate in instances where we cannot verbalize information. I know there's been situations where children have been saved from kidnapping because they simply wrote down a note and gave that note to a server who was able to contact authorities or the police. There's a multitude of reasons why we need to make sure that we maintain our handwriting. But most importantly, it's to help our future generations. It's to help them understand how to navigate life or different situations. So never lose the art of penmanship. So how do we maintain the art of penmanship? You want to practice your penmanship. So for children, especially for that K through 5th grade who are struggling with writing their letters, you want to buy them writing books, writing prompts. You can even get them a notebook, but have them practice daily until they are efficient in both capital and lowercase letters. You want to make sure that they are writing clearly. They're able to write on the line, a straight line. But just keep practicing and helping them to recognize the letters and write them clearly. Next, we want to talk about the lost art of cursive. Water for Seeds believes in preserving and utilizing the art of cursive writing. We understand that we're in a digital age, but we believe it's important to read and write in cursive in cases where you need to read documents or sign your name. We want the children of Water for Seeds to practice the ability to read and write in cursive. So here we just have a cursive writing alphabet. You can download these worksheets from superstarworksheets.com or any online website where you can just download the cursive alphabet. You can also buy cursive alphabet writing books, but whatever you do, just help your children to practice cursive writing and practice until they become efficient. Here's some practice you can do at home. So today with your child, or when you have any free time, sit down with them and help your child to practice writing sentences using the appropriate punctuation marks. Ask them to write a sentence using one of the following punctuation marks: period, a question mark, exclamation mark, a comma, and quotation marks. You'll go back to the section of the video where we discuss sentences based on function and structure. And you can use that as a guide to help them write their sentences. Just give them the space to do so. And then once they have completed their sentences, just make sure that they convey their messages clearly and they use the proper punctuation. In conclusion, writing is important for the evolution of humanity. How to help your child improve their writing skills and penmanship? Well, number 1, you want to practice sentence function. Number 2, practice sentence structure. Number 3, practice proper punctuation. Number 4, practice proper capitalization. Number 5, practice improving penmanship. Number 6, remind them that what they write today will one day contribute to the evolution of humanity. I want you to help your child understand that their writing is important. I want you to help them understand that their thoughts, feelings, and emotions will help the next generation understand a little more about themselves and our common links. Think of how our historical figures and ancestors taught us how to eat healthy, how to cook, how to sew and make clothes, how to practice proper hygiene, how to relate to animals and take care of our environments, and how to make tools to improve our human conditions. All of these things were eventually written and converted into books that we read today. Additionally, remind your child that their experiences and discoveries will lead to new technologies that will propel humanity forward. So never stop writing. If you can, help your child by practicing writing daily in a notebook or journal. Just give them writing prompts and help them to understand that their feelings are valid and that what they express will help someone else one day. And with that, our video has come to a close. It is my hope that this video has filled you with hope and inspiration. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I am Mia Durr, the founder and president of Water for Seeds, and I will see you at the next video. Bye.